Hello guys, this is Sujee Maniyam. We are going to take a quick look at Hive, which is a SQL component for Hadoop. So I'm going to show you a few slides to give you a background, and I'm going to do a demo. So this is the Hadoop ecosystem I'm showing. So at the bottom we have Hadoop file system, which is called HDFS, and then we have Yarn, which is an operating system for Hadoop. And then we have a processing framework running on top of that, which is MapReduce, and Hive sits on top of that. So if you can imagine, Hive is a SQL layer, meaning we can write SQL queries using Hive, and Hive will convert them into a MapReduce queries and run them in Hadoop. So there are a few choices for doing SQL in Hadoop. Hive is one of them. Hive is probably the original SQL engine for Hadoop. And we also have things like Presto, Impala, and Tez as Hadoop choices as well. So why are we using Hive? Because if you're writing Java MapReduce, it can be just a lot of work. It's pretty verbose. It's not very flexible. So Hive was created at Facebook to use SQL as a query language, right? Because most people know SQL, and SQL is pretty great for querying. So the way Hive works is it takes SQL queries and turns them into MapReduce. So if you imagine the workflow, what happens is SQL queries come in, we write SQL queries for Hive, and then Hive turns them into a MapReduce and runs them on Hadoop and gives us a result. And we have to remember it's a batch processing system, meaning your queries might take a few seconds or a few minutes to come back. So let's quickly show you a quick demo of how we can use Hive. And you can hopefully see my browser, and I have a Hadoop sandbox running, and also I have some files set up in Hadoop file system. It's a very simple file which contains some billing data. Let me show you what the data looks like. So here I'm logged into my my Hadoop sandbox, and so my building data looks a very simple CSV file, and if you can imagine, the format is each time a customer uses a resource, we log the data. So you can sort of look at the timestamp, maybe customer ID here, and how much usage they use. Right? So very simple building data, and I already have the file uploaded in HDFS. So what we are going to do is we are going to define a table, a Hive table pointing to the data, and do some Hive queries. So for this, this is the data I'm defining. So if you look at the Hive table definition, I'm creating a table, I'm calling it a bill, and these are my attributes, and they're fairly standard. I have a timestamp, customer ID, resource ID, quantity, and cost, right? Pretty standard stuff. And then I am pointing where the data is living in HDFS. So this is a very simple table. Let me go ahead and actually create this table for us. And here I'm going to run ask Hive to execute the script. This will actually create the table for us. So it takes a couple of seconds. And what I'm looking for is, once it's done, it should print out OK. So the table has been created. There you go, right? So okay, that's very good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the Hive shell. I'm just going to type Hive just to open the Hive shell, and this is going to give me drop me into the Hive shell so I can actually do the queries. Very good. I have the Hive shell right here, and I'm going to see all the tables that are in the system. So show tables is what I'm using. Very good, cool. I see a couple of tables, and I also see my billing table I just created. So let's go ahead and see what the billing table looks like. For that, I'm just using describe billing table, and it says, yeah, I see all my attributes I defined: timestamp, customer ID, resource ID. Very good. So now it's time to see some data. from the billing table. So I'm just going to do a simple SQL query to select some data from the billing table. Right, this is it. Right, if you can imagine, I'm just looking at data, select star from billing, and there we go. Hive actually prints out the data that is actually in Hadoop, in HDFS, and it's putting out a very neatly formatted way. Right, and you can match the columns as well: timestamp, customer, resource, quantity, and cost. So the last column is basically cost, meaning how much the transaction costs per customer. Let me find the maximum cost that the customer has encountered, right? So I'm going to do a very simple SQL query. I'm going to select max of cost and min of cost from my billing table. I want to find the maximum cost per transaction and the minimum cost per transaction. Right? Let's do this. And as you can see, Hive is actually running a job. So it says, hey, I'm launching job 1 of 1. So it's actually running a Hadoop job for us. And there we go. That's our result. So the maximum of the cost is 166 and the minimum is 0. And if you go back and look at our raw data, that's cool. That's right. Yeah. So this is the last column I'm checking. So 166 is the highest cost and 0 is the lowest cost. Pretty good, huh? So I'm basically doing a simple SQL query using Hive. And also, let's see, let's sort of add up some cost. Let's see how much each customer has spent. So my second column is the customer ID, and this column is cost. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add up all the cost per customer. Right. So the query for that is very simple. I'm going to do a select customer ID and sum up the cost from a billing table. And as you guys know, we had a group by customer. That's it. That's my query. Very simple. Very simple aggregate query. And I'm going to let this go. As you can see, Hive is running it. And here's my result. So basically, customer 1 overall spent 215. Customer number 2 spent 297, so on and so forth. Right? So as you can see this is pretty quick. And my queries, this took just about 6 seconds. And all I'm doing in Hive is I'm just using SQL queries to analyze my data, which is a very powerful concept. That's all for the presentation. We will pick it up in the next section of